What's going on, YouTube world? This is Austin Zaback coming to you with another video, and you're not going to want to miss this video. I have the man, the myth, the legend here, Cody Barton. Appreciate you being on here, brother.
Yeah, dude, of course.
Excited
to be here.
So we're just going to talk today and probably talk about like real estate and subject to. So you probably saw the title and the thumbnail of the video. And as you know, we do a lot of wholesaling, which is essentially where you're just flipping the paperwork, right? Flipping the contract with a real estate deal, okay? But what a lot of people aren't talking about is subject twos, right? And I think, on YouTube especially, people want to know how to get more creative, right? They want to know how they can get deals that maybe aren't good. When they're looking at it from a wholesaling perspective, they're making the offer and the seller's like, it just like, for whatever reason, it's just not working, right? And
You're offering them 60% of what it's worth, and they're like, I owe 90% of what it's worth.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And and maybe for you watching right now, it's like, basically, you up until this point, you thought it was either a wholesale deal or a listing. And you have no other tools in your tool belt. And so by the end of this video, our goal is to kind of give them some tools in their tool belt. So I guess we'll just start with kind of, what in the world is a subject to deal? Like just at its core,
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people confuse it. And so in like the simplest manner, it's just understanding that in a subject to transaction, what's happening is you are buying a property subject to the existing mortgage. So essentially what's happening there. So what's actually occurring is when you're purchasing that property, the title, the name on title is changing. It's going from John and Mary Smith over to, Austin Zaback LLC or whatever that, entity that you're putting on title is. So the title changes. So the ownership changes, but their mortgage. So John and Mary Smith, they got a loan, a conventional loan 5 years ago. That loan is still there. You're basically then taking control of that mortgage. You're not assuming it, but you're taking control. You're taking control of that mortgage. You're on title. You legally own the property and have control of that property.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. So then the deed transfers, the note stays essentially, which would be like the one level up of how you would think about it, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay. Very cool. And what kind of situation would somebody want? Because I feel like, if you're brand new, you're watching us right now, you're like, maybe you're wholesaling or whatever. I think, and for me, right, I was like, well, why would a seller want to do that, right? You're kind of like, what in the world?
Yeah.
So like, why would a seller want to do that? Because it's clear that you're very, very successful at this. So there's obviously somebody out there where it makes total sense for them to do this.
Yeah. So what you gotta come down to is, it's sellers are, just people in general, they're looking for the best solution. And a lot of times it's convenience. Why do people sell at wholesale? People are like, why would someone ever sell you their property for 60% of what it's worth? Because convenience or solving a problem. So what we get paid for in real estate primarily, and that's what people have to think of this as, is you're getting paid to solve a seller's problem. You're not getting paid to, just handle the transaction. It's you're coming in, recognizing a problem, inserting your solution. Like I was talking to, we were talking to your team a little bit earlier on, like, what are we actually doing here?
Right.
Like you have different tools in your tool belt, and it's like wholesale maybe is your hammer. You're using a hammer to hammer in a nail. So you have a screw, and a lot of people, they look at it as, okay, I need a screwdriver, so I just need to use a screwdriver to do that. But that's like within wholesale, within doing this in real estate, you have to look at it as, I need to be able to know subject to as my screwdriver.
A lot of people are trying to hammer the screw in.
Yeah, they're just like, if I can't use a hammer for everything, there's no opportunity.
The screw's not going in, right?
Yeah,
like you only got a hammer. You need a screwdriver. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like having different tools, and the reason people do it is it's solving their problem.
Sure.
That's end of the day. You solve their problem. That's what actually gets a seller to move forward.
100%.
People sell you their house at 60% or 50% of what it's worth because you're solving a problem.
They have a problem.
For them.
You have a solution, right?
Exactly.
What are a couple example problems that you tend to come across where subject to tends to work like fairly well?
So two of them. One situation is a lot of times sellers that are in foreclosure. Okay. So they're behind on their payments, and a lot of times maybe they don't have enough equity. Maybe the house is worth $200,000, they owe $190,000. They don't have enough equity and they're behind on payments. If they listed that house with a realtor, they're gonna have to pay commissions to the buyer's agent, to the listing agent, closing costs, the reinstatement, and those fees need to be paid off to the bank. They're gonna have to write a check to sell the house, so it's not an option to list the house. They're in a really tough situation. So in a subject to transaction, a lot of times where we can go in, take over that, take the title to the property, control their mortgage, reinstate the loan, and then they're able to, move out of the property, not get a foreclosure on their record. So that's one of the primary ways.
So pre-foreclosure is way number one.
Exactly.
Right?
So pre-foreclosure. So if you don't know what a pre-foreclosure it is, it's basically where somebody has been missing their payments. They haven't been making their mortgage payments to the bank. So the bank is going to, at some point, take the home from that family. So
sometimes referred to as a notice of default, which turns into a pre-foreclosure, which turns into a foreclosure if they get foreclosed on, which is a problem you're trying to solve. So you're getting out in front of that and saying, hey, look, wait a minute, you're about to lose this thing. You're going to get a foreclosure on your record. Like, no. You have no other options. Like, we're going to help you, right?
Yep, exactly.
And you are helping them. Like, that's like, this is the real deal, right? Like, I think a lot of people think like, and then obviously I want to get into way number two, but I think a lot of people think like it's like a slimy, or like they hear subject to and they're like, but it's like, wait, hold on a minute. Like, you're solving a very viable problem in the marketplace.
That most people don't know how to solve.
That most people don't know how to solve.
They're using a hammer.
Because they're using a hammer, which is why they think it's slimy, just because they don't understand it, I think. Ultimately, right? If you understood it, right? If you watch this video and you understand it, then it's like, wait a minute. Like, I'm just going to put the screwdriver in my tool belt and like, we're going to help some families out, right?
Exactly.
So, awesome. I love it. So what is like another good reason?
So another reason, so in a market like Arizona, our market's hot. Like, if you want to buy a home on the MLS here, so it's hard. Like, it's competitive. If you're trying to find a house, you're usually competing against multiple offers. You're in a tough situation where you have to figure out, okay, we're trying to buy a house, but 6 other people are making an offer at the same time. So there is actually my personal home that I'm living in now. Those people, their problem, they weren't in foreclosure. They didn't have distress, but their problem, they wanted to buy another house that was bigger. Their family was growing. And so their problem was they needed to sell their house and then also buy. So they needed to be in a situation where their house sells and then they're able to also buy one and close and be able to move out all at the same time.
Got it.
And so lining that process up is tough. So where, I bought the house from them, was able to put some cash in their pocket and close whenever they needed to. So it was basically, hey, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, you guys find the property you want to buy. If that takes 1 month, 3 months, 4 months, perfect. Whatever you need, find that property. We'll have an agreement for me to purchase your property subject to. You'll get this amount of cash. So then we were able to structure it where they found the house. They were a week out from closing on their new house. I closed escrow on the purchase of their house, let them stay for a week in the house. I took it over subject to, so I took over control of their mortgage. I went on title, and then they were able to have the week to move out. They were able to get into their other property, and they were able to do it on a super flexible timeline as well.
Again,
so that's, it's solving the problem.
Solution.
Exactly.
I love it. So for the people watching right now, what? Like, I'm trying to think of myself or yourself way back in the day. Maybe I would say probably a lot of people watching, my guess would be they're new to the wholesaling business. Because it typically goes like you start wholesaling or you learn what wholesaling is. You watch a bunch of videos on YouTube.
See HGTV, flipping houses.
Flipping houses,
and,
right?
Yeah.
You get curious, and then all of a sudden it's like, real estate's one of those industries where I feel like it's like one thing leads to the next, right? You like, there's like this entry level of real estate, and then eventually, people become developers and they do all this crazy stuff. So at what, like based on your experience, at what point should people start to really consider subject twos as like a viable tool to add to their tool belt?
Business? Yeah. I think the biggest thing is not changing what they're doing. Focus on keeping the main thing, which in this business is wholesale. So focusing on wholesale, and then just find the best use of the property. So if you're talking to a seller and it's not going to work for a wholesale, just look at it. Could this work as a subject to? Could this work as a creative finance type of deal? And if you don't feel confident, like if people don't feel confident, find somebody in their market that can help them with that. And like as far as people in Phoenix, obviously we're more than happy to help them. We have, underwriters in our office that are working full-time underwriting and helping people structure these deals. We could help go on appointments. We can offer that to people. But, say if you're in, a random market in like Virginia or some market like that, you got to try to find somebody that's doing this in your market. Because what the challenge is when you're starting off, it's hard enough to get traction going just to wholesale. So if you're trying to wholesale, you're trying to flip, you're trying to do subject to, you're trying to do all these different things. You're chasing 5 different rabbits. Per se.
How does that saying go? The man that tries to catch 2 rabbits catches none or something like that.
So it's like you don't want to get too distracted. It's just you want to become aware of this is an option for for sellers. And so once you're aware of it, and if you could find somebody that's good at doing it in your market, like that's what I did first. Like the first couple subject to deals I did, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, this could work.
Right.
So I found a couple people that knew how to do these deals, and the first guy ever was Brian Hout. He actually was the first guy that helped me structure a subject to deal. I had no idea what I was doing, but he helped me figure out, he did the paperwork and everything, did the deal, and I made money, and I learned in the process.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing is when you're starting off and you're trying to do these types of deals, think more for the education than just making the money on it. Because once you learn how to do it, then you can make as much money as you want structuring them and putting them together in the future. But that was what I did, was I brought value to somebody like Brian Hout at that time. He had done 500 plus of these deals, so he knew what he was doing. So I could bring that opportunity to him, and he could help me put it together, and I learned through that process. And then now, obviously, myself and Pace, we're doing a lot of these deals, and we know how to do them and know how to structure them, and know what the problems are, know how to solve those problems, and but it all started from bringing value to somebody else that knew how to initially do them.
1,000,000%. I love that. So again, if you didn't catch that, okay, that is like, go find somebody that has what you want, right? Find somebody that's doing what you want to do, and just kind of like help, like add value to their life, right? Like I think so many people, I think we were talking about this too on the A&A show on our podcast, which if you haven't checked out already, like definitely go check it out. We interviewed, myself and my business partner Austin interviewed Cody, and it was a phenomenal podcast, which will probably drop here within the next week or so. Cool. So definitely check that out. But I think we were talking about, and I totally lost my train of thought.
But value, talking about
the
adding value,
right? Yeah. And so it's like, because so many people, especially like millennials, like younger people.
Oh, dude, the entitlement thing. It's people like message and be like, help me with this, help me with this. Or people like double message me. Like my phone is just always like, I'm always behind, and I feel bad sometimes when I'm like, look, I'm trying to do these other things and take care of my people. We have 20 people on our team. Like that's 20 different individials I got to make sure taking care of before I'm focused on taking care of the people outside of that. So, I think the biggest thing people need to know is like, get it the entitlement thing, because all of people, they'll message me and like, hey Cody, can you help me? And I'm like, and I haven't responded for 3 hours, and they'll text me and be like, oh, I guess you're too busy for me. And I'm like,
they become haters like this. It's like, wait a minute.
And I'm like, you texted me on Tactical Tuesday. I do meetings with my entire team from 8:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. Like I'm not even, so it's like people just have to, understand to be leading with value and,
add value. I love it. No, and you know what? You should be doing that if you're watching in any industry, right? I mean, anything that you want to learn, I think especially in 2020, I think it's interesting because we live in a time where, there's so much information out there. There's almost too much information, right? Like you have to, because like you could sit on YouTube and learn, like there's people that have made videos on subject twos just like this. And this is a great video, and we're providing a lot of value to the viewer right now. But like, again, like you still got to get your feet wet, right? Like you've got to do deals, and whether that's like going and providing value to Cody or me or somebody else in maybe your local market, if you're obviously if they're not in Arizona, but like that's how you're really going to gain that experience. And then I like what you said right before that, and that was like lead with the main thing, like the rabbit thing, right? When it's like, okay, like if you're a wholesaler, like your main pitch is like, I'm a buyer, right? Like we're going to buy your property for blank, right? That's like your main, and that's like 90% of your focus is on that. And then subject to just happens to be like a backup option. But you're not like taking 5 hours out of your day
and trying to figure out how to
like,
make subject
I'm going to market to subject twos. No, market for wholesale deals, right?
Yeah, you find them within the wholesale deals.
Yep. Because so many people do that, right? Like they're like, it's like shiny object syndrome of like, and they're just all over the place. And it's like you can eventually do multiple things, like when you have a
Once
team
you have a team,
and stuff.
you have a team that are focusing on those different, all the different strategies.
When you're delegating and stuff like that. Got it. Okay.
But especially the one-man shows, like you gotta, focus on one thing, make that work, and then you leverage other people and other resources around you to, make those other opportunities work for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and look, and that's pretty much it, right? Like unless you have anything else, I mean, subject twos, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the biggest reasons people probably are afraid of and we were talking about this before, but it's like the paperwork and stuff and like what it takes to do a deal. But it's like, again, if you find somebody in your local market that you can add value to, like that, you're going to solve that part of it automatically, right?
Yeah.
Would that be like the main hurdle that you would say like people kind of struggle with getting into it? Or?
Yeah, I think that, and people are like, well, I would never let someone take over mine. They're like, no one would do this. I would never let someone take, control of my mortgage. Well, you have to understand, like, you also would say, I would never sell my house for 60% of what it's worth.
Right.
I would never sell my car, but people trade in their cars. I trade in my car,
do too. Yeah,
and I'm like, I lose my ass when I trade in my car. And I'm
you always tell yourself when you're going to buy it, I'm not going to lose money on this one, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to lose money on it. But you're like, I don't want to deal with selling at private party, which I know I would get more money. I know for a fact I would get more money, but convenience, solving my problem, which is I don't want to have to deal with people, tire kickers coming and potentially not buying it and wasting my time. So like that's what people have to think of is it's kind of the paradigm of just because you would not use that as a solution for you doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't for their situation. It's like don't put your mind into the decision making of somebody else.
Because now you're assuming, right?
Yeah,
you're
just assuming.
And by the way, like the people that are saying that you're probably in a good financial position right now. Yeah. But the people you're working with aren't. They somehow or another they got themselves in a pickle. It's on them, right? Like that's their life, and you're helping them out of that pickle, right? Like no different than you don't know what you don't know, right? Like if you're watching right now, there might be a time. Hopefully, there's never a time in your life where you're in a pickle, but if there is, your opinion on the matter is probably going to change, right? Like you're going to like think outside of the box of how to get out of the pickle. Yeah. And ultimately like hard time. What do they say? Like hard times call for like hard measures or something. I don't know what they say, but like there's like a saying that talks about that a little bit of like, look, like you gotta get uncomfortable and like just like solve the problem. Like what are you gonna do? So I love it. And again. Like the last part is like again like the like especially in like the pre-foreclosure example and stuff, like the bank is just gonna auction the property. Like they're not gonna be in a better position as a result of that for sure. Like you're way better off like trying to put yourself out there, even if you are new and scared and uncomfortable, whatever. Like find somebody to help you, put yourself out there and try to help a seller, and just try it one time, and if it works, great. Yeah. Keep doing it, If it doesn't work great, then rethink it, whatever. Like you got to figure out what works best for you, I think, too.
Yeah, definitely. So, and I think, as far as, because a lot of people are like, how could I learn more subject to, or where can I find more about creative finance? And so like some of the resources I found are, one of them is like Propelio. They have some good videos on YouTube too. Shameless plug, but we have a Facebook group on, subject to, and I think it's subject to creative investing with Pace Morby, which is my partner for those of you that don't know. But, you can check out our group. We're going to be posting, and we're actually going to be bringing a bankruptcy attorney on our show, a CPA on our show, and then we're also going to be bringing a title rep on our show, or on our just on our little Facebook group, because a lot of people ask the same questions. They're well, what do I do if the seller's in bankruptcy, or how does this work with my taxes, and how do I write? So there's a lot of very detailed questions people ask. So we're trying to bring those to light and help answer those questions as well. So
and where can they find all that? Obviously, I have Cody Barton Official pulled up on your Instagram, and then you have Deal Hub HQ. Is there another place they can go?
So Deal Hub HQ, that's, you could find our team on there, things that we're doing and working on. Reach out to us if you need help with anything. But we could probably put in like the show notes or something, the Facebook group.
Cool, yeah. I'll put it in the description too, down below. So check the description down below. You can send me those links afterwards, and we'll make sure that like you have all of Cody's information. Look, guys, at the end of the day, like you're a stud, dude, and I've known Cody for a long time. We actually kind of grew up together in a way, or at least spent like the set, like I almost wanted to say the second half of our life,
the later end of our teen years.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So and it's really cool to watch how much he's grown and evolved, and like honest and truly, like I look up to him and he looks up to me. Like it's totally cool. We do different but very similar things. And dude, I'm just impressed, dude. I'm really impressed, and I appreciate you for being on the show. And
100%.
Definitely,
hopefully we're able to help.
Yeah, hopefully we're able to help. Like reach out to him. Reach out to me if you have questions. Hope we can both help. Like whatever. I know I'm going to be doing more subject twos now. Yeah. So it'll be a lot of fun. Well, thanks for being on the not on the show because you're on my personal YouTube, but thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, brother.
Sweet.